WAGA-TV, Atlanta.
The following program is pre-recorded.
Released a sketch of a man they want to talk to in connection with the disappearance of 22-year-old Larry Rogers. And federal authorities are holding a 22-year-old man who allegedly threatened to kill the president.
And officials are trying to find out who planted 3 bombs inside an Atlanta grocery store. The full story is next on News Scene tonight.
This is 5 News Scene tonight. Forrest Sawyer and Pam Martin anchor the News Scene team. Bill Hartman with Superstar Sports. And meteorologist Ken Cook with Color Radar Weather.
Good evening. Atlanta police have released a sketch of a man they want to question in connection with the Larry Rogers case. Rogers is now on the task force list. He's a 22-year-old retarded man who disappeared from his northwest Atlanta home on March 30th. And a witness told police that a man who looks like this was driving a car that Rogers got into that Monday. Tonight, Public Safety Commissioner Lee Brown told News Scene's Richard Belcher that the man is not a suspect. Police just want to talk to him.
This person who gave you the information that led to the sketch, he or she knew Rogers absolutely, would pick him out easily.
That is correct. There's no doubt about his knowing Rogers, and therefore we do have that as valid information that we know.
The man police are looking for is black. He's 50 to 55 years old with long gray and black hair, with heavy eyebrows and a heavy mustache and a light brown complexion. The witness also told police that the man was driving a 1966 faded green Chevrolet 4-door station wagon. And the partial auto tag is R blank blank 5 blank blank. Police also say that Rogers may have been seen as late as this past weekend. 2 witnesses say they saw the young man playing basketball at Glen Emerald Park in southeast Atlanta Sunday afternoon. The witnesses reportedly identified Rogers from a photographic lineup at police headquarters. Police say the information they received is credible.
Federal authorities are holding a man accused of plotting to shoot President Reagan. 22-year-old Edward Richardson, that is, was picked up in New York armed with a loaded .32 caliber revolver. Now, there are some striking similarities between this case and that of John Hinckley, the man accused of shooting the president last week. Richardson reportedly wrote a letter threatening to kill Reagan and, quote, bring to completion Hinckley's reality. He is also said to be infatuated with actress Jodie Foster, as is Hinckley. And Richardson once lived about 20 miles from Hinckley's family in Colorado. Authorities refused to comment on any possible link between the 2 men. And just a few minutes ago, we received a late report that Richardson allegedly had targeted 2 men as secondary targets, North Carolina Senator Jesse Helms and Secretary of State Alexander Haig. The man accused of shooting John Lennon once lived here in suburban DeKalb County. New York authorities working on the case are coming to Atlanta to interview people who once knew Mark David Chapman and may have seen him when he came here in November. Chapman is a graduate of DeKalb County's Columbia High School. He first moved to the Atlanta area back in 1962. The investigators will arrive here tomorrow. Chapman's trial is expected to begin this spring. A City of Atlanta corrections officer is in Grady Hospital tonight with 3 gunshot wounds, and another corrections officer has been arrested and charged with that shooting. The incident happened tonight around 8:30 at the city's training center on Key Road in South DeKalb County. Reportedly, Officer Gary Magsby got into an argument with Officer Ricky Cameron. Police say that Magsby shot Cameron during the argument. Cameron was taken to Grady Hospital, his condition not yet released. Magsby was arrested by DeKalb County Police and charged with aggravated assault.
Atlanta police and federal agents are still trying to find out tonight why someone put 3 bombs in an Atlanta grocery store this morning. 5 News Scene's John Weatherford says the drama began when the store owner first opened his business this morning.
The bomb unit, city police, fire, and rescue units jammed the 600 block of Boulevard in northeast Atlanta around 10 o'clock this morning. As police and safety officials worked to clear the store, owner Charles McMichael told me what he saw as he entered the store about 9:30 this morning.
There was a big can of gasoline sitting there in the hallway, so I went to check it out. And there were some wires running from it going to some other kind of chemical.
McMichael later said he had a theory as to who may have set the bombs, but he wouldn't talk about it. Sergeant William Briley was the first man to go in to disarm the bombs. He said the combination of devices appeared to be the work of someone who knew something about explosives.
There's 3 of them, and they were all set the same way. Plus, there was the gas lines inside the building had been tampered with, and there's a good bit of gas inside. It would have destroyed the building. You know, he was using electricity as a element to set off an explosion, which amateurs generally do not do.
More than 4 hours after police first received the call, after a lengthy investigation, Atlanta police turned over the materials to federal authorities for analysis and investigation. As the police and federal alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agents removed the explosive devices, they still had a variety of questions yet to answer. One source said they hope to have more on a motive sometime tomorrow. John Weatherford, 5 News Scene Tonight.
Washington has some good news for MARTA tonight, and Governor Busby signs that controversial credit card bill.
And a Clayton County teacher who was fired last night now says she may never have been cut out to be a school teacher.
Sharon Burns, that Clayton County school teacher fired from her job last night, is now mulling over her future. She says she was surprised to be fired with so little time left in the school year, but she told 5's Jim Kay tonight that the Clayton County School Board just rushed a decision that she'd already made for herself.
Those controversial posters that Sharon Burns' students turned out, which led to her firing last night by the Clayton County School Board, apparently were the straws that broke the camel's back for both of them. She says that from the beginning, she and high school administrators never saw eye to eye. She claims that the school principal did not like the way she dressed, too close to what the students wore, she says, and she says she was too close to the kids to suit the administration.
To relate to the students as human beings first. I mean, I think that is the essence of being a good teacher, is taking their feelings and thoughts into account as human beings, that they're not inferior because they're students, which is the whole atmosphere behind public education.
She says she censored the posters before they were put up, has regrets about one of them, but she says the students wrote them and could relate to them.
Well, the one at the hearing last night that the principal said was the most objectionable one was, it said, get the facts before the facts get you. And it had pictures of babies at the bottom, and then after where it says get the facts, it had, she had cut out words from magazines like the most amazing breakthrough, one is right for you, and then she had mentioned different types of contraception. So it was get the facts with different types of contraception before the facts get you with pictures of babies.
Ms. Burns said she had planned before last night not to return to Clayton County next year, and that her principal knew that. She says she can't understand the harsh action in firing her. She says she's dedicated to teaching, but probably not in a public school. She hasn't made up her mind yet about whether or not to appeal the school board's final action. Jim Kay, 5 News Scene.
Georgia Power is getting ready to go back to the Public Service Commission for a rate increase. It's been more than 2 years since the company filed for an increase. Georgia Power says with the annual inflation rate of 10 to 12%, it needs more money. There's good economic news for MARTA tonight. Senator Mac Mattingly says he's been assured by Transportation Secretary Drew Lewis that MARTA's rapid rail system will be fully funded for the next 2 fiscal years. That despite the big cuts planned for mass transit systems in a number of other cities around the country. Under the plan, MARTA would get $40 million for fiscal 81, nearly $41 million for fiscal 82. But funding for a lot of other programs is still in doubt. President Reagan's huge budget cuts sailed through the Republican-controlled Congress, but today it was a different story in the House Budget Committee, where the Democrats are still in the majority. The committee scrapped Reagan's plan and substituted its own, which calls for less defense spending and more for social programs. And the debate included something of a role reversal, with the Democrats saying that the Reagan plan would lead to a big deficit, while their plan would reduce it.
When Ronald Reagan was running, it was his full position, and the American people believed him, that he'd balance the budget, and I doubt very seriously very many of them thought that he was going to have a $50 billion deficit this year.
I admit things are different, but I frankly think what is really different is that our party is now trying to talk about a positive application of economic growth as opposed to worshiping at the shrine of a balanced budget.
The Republicans are disputing the Democratic figures. Vice President Bush says the administration is prepared for battles in the House, and he says that Democratic plan is unacceptable.
Well, Governor Busby today signed into law that controversial bill that will allow banks to charge credit card customers a service fee of up to $12 a year and effective immediately. He also signed bills extending higher interest rates for finance company loans, small bank loans, and dealer-financed car loans. DeKalb County resident Steve Bethel is most certainly watching his bank withdrawal slips more carefully now. A few weeks ago, he unknowingly handed one to a bank clerk that someone had written on the back, "This is a stick-up. Give me all your money." Now, as you might imagine, the teller asked him about it. He denied knowing anything about it. He filled out another slip and left with his money. Once outside, a police officer arrested him, and he spent the night in jail. Authorities eventually dropped all the charges in the mix-up.
Just trying to get some money, huh? Ken, what about the weather?
Well, the weather is great, and we'll tell you all about it as we go into the middle of the week. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
5 News Scene Weather with Ken Cook has the seal of approval of the American Meteorological Society.
When I was outside tonight, a little bit of rain.
Well, you know, Pam, I didn't see it, so I'm going to say officially it didn't happen. It did happen. You know, those clouds we were talking about this evening drifting in from Alabama apparently had a little bit of light sprinkle activity. That has since ceased. Today in Atlanta was a beautiful spring day. We've got another one coming up tomorrow and a lot more before this week is out. Today's high reached a very pleasant 73 degrees. This morning's low was a fairly mild 48. The day averaged out 3 degrees above normal for this time of year. As you know, no rain in the last 24 hours. Records for the state, 85 degrees occurring back in 1967 and 30 degrees in 1950. At 11 o'clock in Atlanta, our temperature now 60 degrees. Fair skies beginning to thin out once again and southerly winds at 10 miles an hour. Our relative humidity has come up only a bit to 41%, and the barometric pressure is steady at 30 and 25 hundredths inches. Taking a look at live color radar now from Atlanta, we're not showing any precipitation within 150 miles of us or so. Earlier this evening, as Pam said, and as we didn't expect, a few light sprinkles fell out of those clouds, and that has now ended. Taking a look at the satellite picture from about an hour ago, we do see some of the high clouds that were invading from the southwest over Texas and portions of Arkansas, and a trailing band, or a leading band, I should say, of those clouds moved across portions of Alabama and Georgia, and you can see now moving into east central Georgia. A little bit of light sprinkle activity from the high and middle clouds, but nothing is going to occur the rest of tonight or tomorrow. Here's a look at the national weather map. We have a frontal system more or less stationary in the central section of the country. Back into the west, a few rain showers or light rain in the plains and a little bit of snow flurry activity in the west, but other than that, it was a delightful day almost from coast to coast. Looking at high temperatures tomorrow that we're projecting around the country, we're going to see fairly warm temperatures continuing, 70s and 80s in the south and east, 50s and 60s in the north. Around Georgia at 10 o'clock tonight, our temperatures are mostly between 55 and 60 degrees under high clouds, and the clouds are moving east and now beginning to thin out. Here's my forecast now for Atlanta and vicinity. Partly cloudy and cool tonight, a low temperature of 50 degrees. Tomorrow you can look for a mostly sunny and mild day with a high temperature going to 76. And the rest of the week looks like this. There's a small chance of showers Thursday, and then back to sunny and very mild conditions Friday and Saturday. And I hope, Pam, that those few sprinkles didn't get you too wet this evening.
Oh, no, not at all. Listen, how's the weather going to be in Florida for the space shuttle?
Looks like it's going to be great Friday morning.
All right, good. The countdown at Cape Canaveral is back on schedule now. Workers have been able to make all the necessary repairs on the Columbia. The countdown was stopped for 12 hours today to correct problems with a valve in the engine and another valve in the ground support system. But since 30 hours of hold time is built into the schedule, the Columbia is still expected to blast off just after dawn on Friday. If you've been missing some mail from Valdosta lately, we may have the reason why. An internal investigation of the post office there shows that about 2,000 pieces of second and third class mail were tossed in a dumpster behind the post office last January. The postmaster has been reprimanded, a senior supervisor was fired, another one was demoted.
The former Yippie leader Abby Hoffman emerged from hiding last September after 7 years on the run. He was wanted for selling 3 pounds of cocaine back in 1973. Today he was sentenced for that crime to 3 years in state prison. He pleaded guilty to the charge. Hoffman will be eligible for parole in 1 year. Dan Rather's attorney says the CBS anchor man is dropping charges against a Chicago cab driver that Rather says kidnapped him. Rather says the cabbie refused to let him out of the car and took him for a wild ride around Chicago. The cabbie says Rather simply wouldn't pay his fare. The man was charged with 2 misdemeanors, which are now dropped.
Atlanta officials begin enforcing that new gun law.
And Western nations tonight breathe a little easier as the Soviets stop their war games in Poland. Washington is reacting cautiously to what appears to be a reduction in the threat of Soviet intervention in Poland. The closely observed Soviet military maneuvers in and around Poland have stopped after a long buildup. And Soviet President Brezhnev told the Czechoslovak Communist Party he thinks Poland can solve its own problems without outside intervention. A Western diplomat in Moscow says Brezhnev is trying to calm the waters. President Reagan's physicians say he's doing better every day. They say his spirits are excellent and his temperature's back to about normal. The president is being informed of the affairs of state by top advisors. Today, he talked with the FBI about the shooting 9 days ago. That debriefing was described as part of the routine investigation. And the Secret Service agent who stopped a bullet intended for the president visited Reagan today before checking out of the hospital. Agent Tim McCarthy held back tears and told reporters, "It's great to be alive." He says Reagan told him a wealthy Republican had offered an Acapulco condominium to recuperate in. And he says that Reagan told him to go have fun. A White House statement says Reagan told McCarthy, "I thank you from the bottom of my heart."
In Macon, a 10-year-old boy was accidentally shot and killed yesterday. Joseph Thomas was shot in the chest while his father was teaching him to fire a .22 caliber rifle. The boy's father says the gun jammed, that he was getting a tool to fix it when he heard the gun go off. The city of Atlanta has started enforcing a handgun ordinance that was passed last year. All gun shops within the city limits were to be notified today that the law is in effect. It requires a 15-day waiting period before a handgun can be purchased. Police will make extensive background checks on prospective buyers. The law had not been enforced because of a temporary restraining order, but that order has now been lifted. Tonight's editorial is about that ordinance. Here's Vice President and General Manager Paul Raymond.
It may have been a small victory, but nonetheless, it was a victory for the people of Atlanta. Fulton County Superior Court Judge John Lankford Jr. has ruled that the city's ordinance restricting the sale of handguns is good, at least for the time being. For over a year, Atlanta has been fighting a court case which would have thrown out a city law requiring Georgia residents to wait 15 days and non-Georgia residents to wait 60 days before a handgun sale could be finalized. The waiting period was designed to give police a chance to check out the individual buying a gun. The law applies only to firearms with barrels 15 inches in length or shorter. We have never understood why anyone would have any reservations about a simple police check before being allowed to buy a handgun. We feel that before a gun is sold, it should at least be known that the person purchasing the gun is not insane or perhaps just escaped from jail. The suit against the city ordinance was not accepted for a technical legal reason. We are sure that more suits will be filed to stamp out Atlanta's gun control law. We hope they fail. For now, the law is on the people's side.
Send us your opinion, Box 4207, Atlanta.
What can you tell us about the playoffs, Bill?
I'll tell you that if you're a Celtic fan, you're in good shape tonight because they're big winners. I'll have that and the other NBA playoff scores coming up.
PM Magazine Bright, new entertainment weeknights at 7:30. This is John Patrick. On Wednesday's edition, you'll meet Eric Gregg. He's Major League Baseball's only black umpire. And his unique and flamboyant style has made him baseball's favorite bad guy. Then you'll meet a very extraordinary couple. You see, David and Lily are mentally retarded. Both were put into institutions long ago with little hope for normal lives. But love and determination can do a lot, as you'll learn on the next edition of PM Magazine, Wednesday at 7:30.
William, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is April.
This is April. We're going to talk football.
And you're going to talk football?
Yeah, and dates and places and things like that. The nation's going to find out what the Falcons are made of next fall. The NFL schedule maker has them down for 3 nationally televised Monday night games. 2 of those 3 are against Class A teams, and they are out of town. Don't do them any favors. Here's the schedule. Open up with New Orleans, in Atlanta, then go to Green Bay, then back home against San Francisco, then it's out to Cleveland. At Philadelphia on October the 5th, Monday night, then it's home for 3, Los Angeles, St. Louis, the New York Giants. They go away to New Orleans, San Francisco, back home to play Pittsburgh and Minnesota on a Monday night. Then look at this, all away games at Houston, Tampa Bay, at Los Angeles on a Monday night game, and then home to finish the season against Cincinnati. I'm glad that the Falcons are going to get so much Monday night exposure this year, but I still think it's about time that the ABC television network and the NFL work out a deal where they can pick those games only a week or 2 in advance. It's a little ridiculous to sit here on April 7th, try to guess which games are going to be good matchups in November. It just can't be done. NBA playoffs, Celtics went into Chicago trying to make it 2 in a row over the Bulls. They did it, 106-97. Here's what happened.
About the only man doing anything in the early going for Chicago was Artis Gilmore. He hustles and stretches for this rebound and scores 2 of his 19 points, but the Bulls were too far behind. They also didn't get the benefit of many calls. Watch Archibald drive to the basket with a charge, but no call. Robert Parrish was there for the follow stuff. He had 27 as Boston led 32-14 at the quarter. The Celtics picked up again in the second half as Kevin McHale was wide open for the two-hand stuff. Bulls coach Jerry Sloan had enough. He wanted a rally, and he got one. Watch the terrific individual effort by Reggie Theus. He scored 21 as late in the fourth quarter Chicago got within 7, 96-89. The Bulls had scored 6 straight, and then the play that killed them. David Greenwood missed the stuff. He was wide open. It would have been down to 5, but Boston got the ball and tallied at the other end. Parrish hits a jumper, and Boston went on to win by a final of 106-97. They lead the series 2-0 with Game 3 in Chicago on Friday night.
In the other Eastern Conference game there, you see it, Milwaukee has done it to Philadelphia 109-99. Out west, Kansas City, Phoenix going to be late, and Houston beat San Antonio 107-98. Somewhat of a blockbuster out of Nashville, Tennessee. C.M. Newton, former basketball coach at Alabama, has signed on to coach Vanderbilt. Newton had him a good job as administrator with the Southeastern Conference, but the Vandy people made it attractive. They created the post of associate athletic director to win him over. Road Atlanta, one of the most unusual entries this coming weekend is the Renault 5 Turbo. Now that's a boxy, funny-looking car, but it has the turbocharger, and that could be the difference.
Well, we have several advantages over the other cars. Is the weight first. We are a very lightweight car, and our engine, that is a turbocharged engine, develops a very decent amount of power, and will be able to make us competitive against the other cars.
Does the boxiness hurt you aerodynamically?
Yes, kind of. Not so much here at Road Atlanta, but at tracks like Daytona will be probably at a disadvantage because the boxy shape is not very aerodynamic, and cars like Datsuns or Mazda will be more streamlined and will go faster in straightaways.
Braves finished the major league portion of the exhibition season with an 11-3 victory over the Cardinals, 15 wins, 15 losses, not bad. Reds coming in Friday night to open up the season.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
That's News Scene Tuesday night, April 7th. For the News Scene team, I'm Pam Martin.
And I'm Forrest Sawyer. Good night.
Portions of News Scene have been brought to you by Food Giant.